You'll see the usual thing in the top, Sandra, when it's on
I'll
Facebook.
wait this time. Good evening, and welcome to the council meeting of the 8th of June, 2020. This meeting is being conducted with COVID-19 protocols in place for social distancing and isolation. The meeting is being conducted electronically using Zoom and is being live streamed on Facebook Live. Town Hall is closed to the public. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website, and the public may send questions directly to the CAO's email at krice@kentville.ca. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting packages? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We have committed to making balanced and respectful decisions and adhering to our code of conduct. We will be voting by poll. The chair will call your name and ask, "How say you?" This method permits us to verbally record your vote. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? Councillor Andrew?
I believe we will be, I think there was, or was I just reading from the past meeting? Anyway, if there's any discussion around 118 Oakdean, I have to stand aside for that.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Pulsifer.
Thank you. I will declare a conflict with regard to number 5B on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. CAO Rice, could you please take the roll call?
Yes, Your Worship. All of the councillors are present and accounted for. Staff, the municipal solicitor, myself, our IT manager, and our recording secretary.
Excellent. Thank you very much. You have before you the proposed agenda. We have one addition to our correspondence, and that is an email from the Extinction Rebellion King's Hants, David Mango. Is there anything further to add to our agenda? There being nothing further, if I could have a motion to accept the agenda, the addition, please.
So move.
Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. Deputy Mayor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. You have before you several sets of minutes. The first set is the council meeting of April 29th, 2019. And that is not a typo, it is 2019. They have been distributed because there was an error in the manner in which one of the motions was written, and that was on page 6 of that set of minutes, or page 32 of your package, and it was a recommendation to council. It was moved by Councillor Kathy Maxwell and seconded by Councillor Eric Bolland that council give the Kentville Historic Society permission to develop the park space. And the motion failed. The councillors who voted in favor of this motion were Andrew and Pulsifer. The councillors who voted against this motion were Bolland, Gerard, Maxwell, Savage, and Snow. So that was just some cleanup of some information that was left behind. The next set of minutes was from our capital budget meeting held on May 19th. Are there any errors to this minutes? there are no errors. We will move on to our operational budget council meeting held on May 20th. And the minutes of the May 20th operational budget council meeting have been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions to this set of minutes? If not, we will move on. From our last council meeting on May 25th, 2020, the minutes of the May 25th, 2020 council meeting have been distributed. Are there any errors or omissions with this set of minutes as distributed? If no, they are approved as distributed. All right, moving on. So we will go through our department reports and recommendations. You've all had a few days to have a look at these, and any questions, I will go out on a limb and say that you have sent them to the CAO or for clarification to the director. So we're looking at the finance report, the director's reports. Are there any questions with this report? All right, moving on. Planning and Development, the Director's Report. Are there any questions with this report? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted a little bit of clarification, and I know Director Gentleman had copied or had sent an email back to me at some point, but around the public hearings that are taking place on June the 17th and June the 29th, just for some of the folks out there that might be watching, can you just sort of take us through the process in terms of how folks will be able to attend those meetings? I'll direct that, if I could, Your Worship, to CAO Rice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the meeting will be live streamed. There will be an opportunity prior to the meeting, and it will be advertised in the Chronicle Herald and on our website, so people can submit their inquiries prior to the meeting. So in writing, they can. It will be live streamed over Facebook, and they will be able to post comments at that time or questions, or they will be able to email me directly with questions or comments, or Director Bedingfield, Gentleman. So it'll be very interactive, and they will have different opportunities to be able to, and they also, we will allow for them to call in as well, if someone feels they need to call in.
Yeah. Thank you. I do have another question as it pertains to the planning report. And I apologize. I normally would get these out beforehand, but I didn't have an opportunity. So if you would prefer me to save some of them for emails later, I'll cover them.
Nope, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. The VCLA, the proposed changes to the LUB. Is planning anticipating doing a development agreement for this project rather than making a change to the LUB, or is that undecided yet?
No, we haven't actually received the official application yet, but I believe that it is an amendment to the land use bylaw. I can certainly confirm that and respond to you directly, Councillor Savage.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any further questions on the planning director's?
I have a question. I can't see you because something has happened here, and I've got the audio, but I don't have the video. And,
okay, if you scroll down,
yeah,
bring your cursor down to the bottom, and you should be able to pick up
Zoom.
the Zoom, and you should.
I'll click on this Zoom thing and see if it works.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
And what about if you go to the top of your screen, there's like these little square boxes. You should be able to click on one that shows you a view.
No, I have the launching screen here for some reason.
Okay.
I don't.
All right, just go ahead with your question then, please.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to see if Jason was there and he could help me get back on here.
Okay, Jason, you're on the case. All right, if you need something, just wave because I can see you.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yes, yes. And we can hear you, no problem. So
Okay,
there's
okay.
nothing wrong with your interaction. It's just the image that you're seeing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the next report is the Community Economic Development Coordinator's report. Are there any questions on this report? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Oh, where is it? Okay. Okay. In the Community Economic Development report, there was a report around the VIC. I'm just wondering. I'll direct that probably to CAO Rice in terms of, when we might be able to open that and safely social distance. As I know, it's going to be important for people to travel around the province, and hopefully we'll have that open sooner than later. I just sort of wanted an update on that.
Yes, thank you. We are working on that right now. We're keeping in close contact with our neighbors as well. We are actually working on a virtual VIC right now, so that the calls that would normally go into our VIC are actually going to our staff, to our Visitor Information Center manager at this time. So we are servicing some of the public that are looking for information. The issue around that is number one is the public washrooms. And the other issue is at this point in time, we don't have the materials that would be distributed to visitors that are coming in. So that's where the disjoint is with it. But we are working to get that ready so that when the time comes, if we open, we'll have everything we need.
Thank you. And I just had one other question with regards to, actually it's sort of a comment and then a question. Just in terms of KBC, I just wanted to make note, because I know they're noted in Lindsay's report around staying in touch with the business community. I think that's really important. And I just understand from Zach, he's not yet back or able to work from town hall. So is that will be sooner, hopefully?
When the town hall opens to the public. At this point in time, it's still closed.
So he would be considered part of the public then?
Yes, because it's a different organization. He's a tenant, so we can't have him in and out of the building.
Okay, thank you.
We will contact him as soon as it's able to do that.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So what is the timeline for getting town hall back open?
I can't give you an exact date right now. We're actually working, as I explained, we're having the audit has been done. Some plans are being looked at and drafted. We have to put the protocols in place. There has to be some tempered glass divisions of auditors and that have to be put in. So we're hoping that this week we will have the sort of the first diagrams of what we need to do.
So is this like a legislated thing, or is this just what we're doing?
In order for us to meet the protocols for serving the public and protecting our staff. Yes.
Okay, so every business has to do this.
Yes. Anyone who's serving the public, which we do.
Okay.
Are there any further questions on either of these reports? All right, we'll move on to the Parks and Recreation, the Director's report. Are there any questions on this report? Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the CAO could probably answer this, but I'm wondering if we are foreseeing an opening of the swimming pool at all this year, because I know that the government has done some reopenings, and swimming pools are one of the things I think that is coming up for reopening. So
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. No, it was decided and during the budget deliberations that no, we would not be opening the pool or the splash pad this summer. It was closed. The decision was made, and when we did our budget, we didn't allow for the opening of the pool in the budget. I know it was a discussion that we had with council as well. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any chance to look at maybe the splash pad at least being open if government protocols allow that to happen?
Oh, yes. I mean, the problem is it's about the social distancing and the gathering. That's where the problem is.
But if they open pools, I can understand with our budget that we've made that decision and that's where we're at with that. But I'm wondering with the, if they open pools, if the splash pad could be opened.
We certainly would have that discussion.
Yeah.
And certainly would keep council involved in that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Unless I missed it in Rachel's report, I just wanted to make note of something. This was actually brought up at our Diversity Kings meeting the other week, and I've messaged Rachel on it. But Rachel and the team have come up with these Kenful Play kits for struggling youth, and they actually produced somewhere between, I think, 393 kits up to 500 kits. And I guess we really are the only ones, the only municipal unit that we're working directly with the community to deliver these kits. Mm-hmm. So it's been a focus on access and in educational matters. So I just think it's important to make that note that we were leaders in this. And it was brought up at that meeting, and it's been very well received by the community and surrounding communities. So kudos to Rachel and her team. And also Miners Marsh looks amazing. I wanted to say that too.
Thank you, Councillor Savage.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? All right, moving on to the police, and from the Police Commission, Deputy Mayor, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this report?
No, we have not met. We are meeting on the 19th. There was not really a whole lot to discuss for a May meeting, so our next meeting will be June the 19th, and I will have a report after that.
All right, thank you very much. Engineering and Public Works, are there any questions on this report?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, I was wondering, and CAO Rice can probably answer this as well, but Belcher Street, the grass situation with the weeds there, I'm wondering if we've taken any steps to rectifying that problem this summer.
Councillor Maxwell, I'm sorry, I can't answer that at this point in time, but I will check that with Director Bell and we will get back to you.
Great, thank you.
Any further? Councillor Pulsfer.
She's got her mute on.
Yeah, she's got it.
Okay, yep. There's too many buttons to hit here. I just wanted to inquire about the status of the unsightly premises report and situation, whether anything had commenced on any of that yet, or is it just pending still?
No, we have formed a committee, a staff committee, myself, the bylaw enforcement officer, and the director of planning, and we have reviewed all of the identified properties. The bylaw enforcement officer has done some investigation, and then we sat down as a committee, and there has been some letters issued, and so there'll be some follow-up within the next about 14 days, I think it, yeah, in around there. And once we get the motion going and the meetings, then we'll include like a report or an update to council once a month. We're just kind of getting things moving and a bit of a process set up.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, CAO.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kelly, have you taken, has the committee taken the surveys that council did and KBC did in regards to the unsightly premises? In how far they, you know, the parameters of what the council wants to see done?
I'm not sure. When you say KBC report, I'm not familiar with it.
It was a survey that the council did, but they also sent it to KBC for their input on what they consider, you know, the parameters on what they consider unsightly: grass, broken windows, dilapidated cars, that type of thing.
Okay. No, I haven't seen that. What we're using as the parameters is the MGA. That's what we're using.
Okay.
All right, moving on. We are at the communication reports. Are there any questions on the communication report? Go ahead, Councillor Andrew.
I just, without digging too much into it, I just wanted to know if there's any intent to facilitate a little smoother communication between between our communications director and KBC. So when there is messaging, as happened over the last week, there's KBC or some representative or representatives of KBC seem to take a position and don't have aren't acknowledging kind of the process, that things are in discussion, and react to something that is in discussion and engage with the public, and it becomes anyway. I'd just like to see that there's a mechanism put in place, and it's not that we in any way. I really love the idea of KBC being as independent as possible and as autonomous as possible. At the same time, I think the relationship is such that you know, given that the town of Kentville is a funder, I think it would make sense that when there's discussions that could cause waves or maybe even aren't popular, that there would be some proper level of discussion there. And anyway, I'm not sure how we structure that, but I'm speaking in particular to our reopening discussions and around parking and some of those things. When it seems like an entity reacts to us, and wouldn't that fall upon our communications director to be engaging with KBC? Yeah, thank you.
So what you're referring to, we do keep very close contact with KBC and that, but what you're referring to, I believe, is the looking at the downtown, the conversation that was held at the last council meeting. So at the last council meeting, council gave staff direction to look at what some of the possibilities could be there, and so we took it away, and I guess the very next morning, so I think there was some members from KBC who were watching the council meetings, and basically before we could reach out to them, they reached out to us. But our plan was, in preparation for this report to come back to council at the end of the month, was to reach out to the business community, which is, as you say, extremely important. I think that, you know, basically they reached out to us before we got a chance to reach out to them, and our staff pretty much reached out the very next day. So I'm not sure how much faster we could do something like that, because that type of direction and conversation wouldn't be an in-camera discussion. So I guess, you know, it wouldn't be any different, I suppose, than if members of the business community were sitting in council chambers at a council meeting. You know, as the information comes to council and then council disseminates it out to staff for reports, you know, I'm certainly open if there is another way that you think that we could do that. But I think that was a situation where, you know, they basically reached out to us because of having viewed the council meeting the evening before.
I think it's just important that, and maybe it's a messaging thing on our end, that people understand that when that recommendation is made, that doesn't mean a decision has been made, and it is absolutely the right time for people to send letters to council, to yourself, and you know, but I know there's been a lot of I was trying to not be too specific, but there's a lot of discussion, as a lot of us know, almost as though we had made a decision, and that certainly isn't the case anymore.
No, that is correct. Staff are preparing a report to come back to council on the 29th.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, on that subject, I guess I would like to know who's responsible for the big stir up, because I was receiving phone calls the end of last week and all weekend long from people who were not happy about it. And I guess in future, when something like this comes along, unless all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, I'm not going to agree or certainly vote for a motion that you know, doesn't list all its parameters and go from A to Z and say this is what it's going to look like. You know, even in spirit, because this was, you know, I'm getting phone calls from people saying council passed it unanimously and this is what it was. And you know, who's responsible for telling people that council wanted to get rid of 56 parking spots?
That was a KBC association-wide email.
So I got an email from KBC saying that town staff directed them to send out this survey asking to have 56. So somebody's not telling the truth.
No, what I can clarify for you is that the next day we had a conversation and staff determined that we couldn't go anywhere with this and give a proper report without input from the business community. And at that point, I asked one of our communications people to reach out to KBC to get their input. And it was my understanding is that it was KBC's decision to put out the survey. We did not ask for that. All we asked for was some input from our business community, because, you know, we couldn't very well develop a proper report for council without having that.
So KBC tells me that they're getting direction from town staff to send out the survey, and you're saying no, town staff did not direct them?
To send a survey. What we did was we contacted them to give us input.
Okay, they're telling me different.
So now whether there was a discussion about them with whether they decided to send out the best way to engage their members, they may have felt that that a survey was warranted. That's great.
Well, I think we should find out exactly what happened.
Certainly.
I think at the end of the day, the motion that we made was to make more space downtown. It was not a motion to eliminate 56 or 57 parking spots. So,
well, absolutely, but that came from somewhere, and I think as a councillor who agreed to A and gets phone calls because the option of B would do everything that it can to destroy retail in the downtown center square, or in retail in Kentville period. You know, we've got to find out what happened, because for these things just to be, you know, willy-nilly, oh, well, you know, no, that's not it. And I'm getting phone calls, as all the other councillors are getting phone calls, and I'm not happy about it.
no,
there was no options A or B or anything that came from staff because we had no options. All we had was some direction from council to investigate. And I don't actually have the motion right in front of me, but so when the next morning was when we started to receive, as a matter of fact, I think we received 1 or 2 calls the next morning, because some members had seen the council meeting, and it was at that point that, you know, as staff, it was decided that we had to have input from the downtown businesses and KBC. Well, they're the representatives, and they were the very first people that we reached out. We haven't done anything with regards to the report because we felt we needed to reach out to KBC first and get their input before we started putting together any type of a report, because depending on the input that came back from KBC would depend on what direction that the staff would take their recommendations in their report to council. But I certainly will check, Councillor Gerard.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, just wanted to make a couple of points on this. You know, people don't listen and they jump to conclusions. And I think probably the way to solve a problem like that is that KBC needs to have a discussion from someone in admin that this is the process when we're coming to you for looking for you know, information, because our staff can't make decisions on things without investigating. And when you investigate, you're just looking for information. So obviously somebody doesn't understand the process. I had a nice chat with a businessman downtown this morning, and, you know, upset about the parking spaces. And I said, well, you know, there's a double-edged sword here for you guys. I said, on the one side, you know, if we eliminate some parking spaces and we widen up the streets so that people can walk, they're probably going to come into your business. Right now, there's people that won't go downtown, period, because they can't social distance. And, you know, there's people standing in line out in front of TD Bank. There's Oates Thrift Store now has lineups there. Chisholm's could end up having lineups there if their post office opens. So you can't physically distance. So people have told me, there's no way I'm going downtown. Like, and you just look downtown, there's not people downtown very much. No way I'm going downtown. So I said, if we do take away the parking spaces, those people may feel more comfortable come downtown. But I said, if we don't do it, they're not coming downtown. So on one side, you're losing. On the other side, you're losing. You're losing people not willing to come downtown because they can't social or physical distance. And you're losing other people because if they can't get a parking spot right in front of your store, they're not coming in. And Andrew Zabian said that himself in his letter. He said, if I park in front of the bank, I go in, I get what I want, I come back out. I said, well, what happens if that spot's not there? Then you're not going, right? And so if I want to go to Chisholm's and the spot's not there for me to dash in, then I'm not going to Chisholm's. And so, you know, it comes down to a decision between, you know, it's basically probably going to be left up to the business community because they're losing both ways. They're losing by not having space on the sidewalks for people to come down because they're not coming, or they're losing because, you know, people can't, we take away a few parking spaces. So, I mean, either way, they're losing. There's no win. And you cannot do an investigation on something without asking questions. So KBC needs a process coming from council. If we're coming to you for information, then we expect you to make sure that that message is delivered in the proper way. And if they don't know how to deliver a message, then we're going to have to deliver that message on our own. And that's how I see it. But, you know, for people to get upset, for business community to get upset, hey, you're losing already. And if you maintain maintain the downtown core the way it is, people aren't coming. If you keep your parking spaces, people aren't coming. If you widen up, then they can't park in front of your store, people aren't coming. So either way, there's no win. And that's the way I think you need to explain it to them. And say, what do you want? It's the summertime. Do you want people to be able to walk to your store, or do you want people to, have to park right in your store before they'll come? So, there's a no-win. It's a no-win, in my opinion. And the businessman agreed with me.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I went back to the May 25th meeting, May 25th or May 29th. And I think probably where a bit of the disconnect was, we talked about a number of things in that motion. We talked about opening or closing down Aberdeen Street. We talked about creating more space in the downtown. And I think for the majority of us that probably we agreed with the spirit of the motion. That was essentially the spirit of the motion. And I think when the survey went out via KBC to the business community, it didn't exactly capture the spirit of the motion. It was very direct. And so I think that was probably part of the disconnect. So obviously when people in the business community are getting a survey out as to how they feel about having 56, 57 parking spaces all around the core being taken away, or how they feel about that, it wasn't as expansive as it could have been. So it obviously upset people, and people wrote in or called, as Deputy Mayor said. So I think in terms of that, it's important to relay the message when we're looking for more information, or staff is looking for more information around a topic, so that they can then bring us back a report to capture that entire motion. And sometimes that's hard to do, because when you look at our minutes, it's not completely captured, because it never is. You can't have all the verbiage in that, all the discussion that was there. So sometimes it's hard to decipher what that is. So I that's just my feeling on it. I think there was maybe just a little bit of a breakdown there. Thank you.
Councillor Bolland.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. Again, at the end of the day, it's all about clarity. Certainly there's some boo-boos here. Is it a win-win situation? I don't think so, but the intention is good. To get more people downtown, but there are upsides and downsides to everything. So, and again, merchants are suffering on the downtown, so it's important to get their feedback in a proper way. And maybe through to the CAO, is that again expected by the end of this month? Is that correct?
The intention was to bring the report back to council for the June 29th meeting for a decision, so that if there was any further direction to staff, that we would move on it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything further on that report? All right, moving on to the CAO's report. Are there any questions for the CAO?
Yep, I have one.
Certainly. Councillor Maxwell, please.
I went through our bylaws, and we have a backyard pool bylaw. And I've had a question from a citizen about a pool that's not being maintained. So I assume that there's water in it, but it's scummy and it's just sitting water. And so I read the bylaw, and it doesn't specifically cover it, but it does say that it's unlawful to construct, install, alter, enlarge, or fail to maintain. So I'm wondering if that fail to maintain would be actionable if that was reported to the town.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. If you were to have the person contact us, we certainly would follow through and have a look at it, and then get back to that person.
Yeah, okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. CEO Rice, the regional recreation strategy. I just was reading about that in your report. So what is the timeline on that? Are we like sort of months away, or just sort of getting back to that now?
No, that has been put to one side with the COVID, and the
Okay.
partners are basically, concentrating on others, and that'll probably most likely come back sometime late summer or maybe early fall.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell, your hand is still up, or you're wanting?
Sorry, no, I'll lower it.
Okay. Are there any further questions for the CAO? All right, that concludes all of our reports for this evening. So if I could have a motion to accept the staff reports as presented.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded the staff reports be accepted as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to unfinished business. And the first item on unfinished business is the banning of municipal election signs. Councillor Bolland has requested that council consider banning plastic election signs for the municipal election. Councillor Bolland, do you wish to speak on this matter?
Yeah, certainly. So this was brought up late last year, I guess. The background there is in front of everybody. You've had time to read that. So the environment is part of our decision wheel. And certainly for myself, who's campaigned in 4 elections, campaign signs are very expensive. I've spent thousands of dollars on signs. I think it's time that the town of Kentville join the town of Yarmouth, who have banned them. We can join the cities of Brampton, Kingston, and Surrey, Ontario. It sends a clear message to our residents and our voters that we are concerned about climate change and dealing with signs that are not recyclable. Also, it levels the playing ground for candidates that have various economic incomes that have to pay for signage. Again, it would be a good way for Kentville to lead by example on this environmental issue, and I just think it's the right thing to do. And again, the background is there. It would also lessen some costs by our staff on the policing of it, and again, put an end to the sign wars that are quite common in communities. Wolfville, by the way, actually have no election signs ever in that region for years and years for some reason, but they don't do it. And I think it's our time as well to lead by example.
So are you making a motion to ban plastic election signs for municipal elections?
So to be clear, the recommendation is in the package, so I can read the recommendation, Your Worship.
All right.
Okay. So that council approve the banning of municipal election signage in the town of Kentville and direct staff to move forward with required amendments to the land use bylaw for a public hearing in July. I so move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder to that?
I'll second.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew. Solicitor, I see your hand up. I was just getting the motion on the table before we started discussion. So it has been moved and seconded that council approve the banning of municipal election signage in the town of Kentville and direct staff to move forward with required amendments to the land use bylaw. Solicitor, please.
Yes, council had sought legal input on the environmental side of this. I had anticipated having that opinion to council before tonight's meeting. I don't have it, but I can summarize it. I know there's an in-camera session scheduled for the end of the meeting, so I'd hope to take an opportunity there to simply tell you what that's going to be. At this point in time, I would recommend that council not council could send this to staff if they want, but I would suggest that you not rely on what's happening in Yarmouth. I don't, based on discussions I've had, I don't believe that's going to proceed. Let me simply say that an outright ban likely will not withstand charter scrutiny. And so those who chose to put signs out, if you charge them, you're likely spending some money after the fact. So I'll say that much about the opinion on an outright ban. And if there wanted to be a discussion around regulating what signs are made of, then I can give that summary in camera at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Solicitor. Councillor Andrew, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, for me, I mean, definitely the environmental piece is a part of that for me, but it's to me, it just more than anything just seems like a tacky nuisance, and I think there's lots of other ways to communicate with people, and yeah, to spend I don't know what I spent last time, but I mean, to spend a few $100s is a lot of money in some people's worlds, and I think it does have that you know, I don't know that what we can do can have any impact on other levels of government. Maybe it can't. I just think it seems like kind of a thing of the past. It seems like an old way of doing things, tacky, distracting, and then we end up with there has been the last few elections, there've been some enforcement issues around that, and so I don't know you know, I know there are some legal ramifications, and this is not a slam dunk, but I'm definitely in favor of not having election signs, at least in our municipal election.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, my question was more directed to the solicitor, because I had remembered from our last meeting where we had talked about this, that the solicitor was taking it away, and that we weren't in a position to just ban municipal signs, that it would have to be all signs, it would have to be provincial and federal. Is that still the case? And or maybe this is something that you're going to cover off in camera. I don't know.
Solicitor.
Your Worship, if you'd like me to address that.
Yes,
the issue with banning signs is that signs historically are an important form of communication for those who perhaps don't have access to things like the internet. The internet is not accessible by all. And unfortunately, and COVID-19 pandemic has made that clear. One just looks at online education, and one of the reasons that we don't have that across the board for public education. This all harkens back to the ability to stand on your soapbox in the middle of the public square and have everybody hear your point of view. And you can't shut down that point of view. And signage is still, I would suggest, an important form of communication in elections. And council is, as I said before, I don't think it will withstand charter scrutiny to totally ban a form of communication around elections. So the detail around the environmental side and regulating what signs are made from, that's a different issue. That's regulation as opposed to prohibition. What I understand this discussion to be about is prohibition, and I would advise you that prohibition is not something that's going to withstand scrutiny.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Well, thank you. Perhaps I could ask the solicitor, first of all, how Wolfville then has had no election signs for several sessions of elections. Like they haven't had signs down in Wolfville for, I can't remember the last time there was a municipal election sign in Wolfville. And so obviously this is something that we must be able to decide, solicitor, because it's not going on down there. So how does that happen? And there hasn't been a charter challenge.
Some jurisdictions may simply be doing it from a volunteer perspective, that it could simply be peer pressure, that if those take the point of view that this is how they would prefer things to happen, if all candidates agree, then that's fine. There are jurisdictions, as Councillor Bolland has pointed out, that have taken the position where they certainly have very strict regulation, and may or may not have faced a charter challenge. They may not have prosecuted anybody. The only way that's going to come up is a prosecution where somebody chooses to defend. And so the right person has to be charged. Otherwise, you're simply removing signs.
Right.
But the administrative side of that becomes important. So just because people do it doesn't mean that it's legal. And you've heard all kinds of discussions around certain things the governments have done across Canada around COVID that arguably aren't, may or may not withstand charter scrutiny. Just because you do it or try to do it doesn't mean that a judge isn't later going to say, you can't do that, folks. This one, in my opinion, and it's not just my opinion, but for your purposes, all the matters in my opinion, won't withstand charter scrutiny. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't choose to do it, but I would suggest that it would be better if candidates simply choose not to use signage because they determine that in your jurisdiction here in the town of Kentville that it's not necessary to do so.
Okay, so we can decide as a group that we're not going to do it, just as Wolfle has decided, obviously, as a group not to do it, and lead the way that way. That's what I'm hearing from you, is that can happen. I feel that I'm, with Councillor Andrew on the fact that it's tacky and so on. I never wanted them in the first place last year, but it's also, it's not environmentally friendly. Those signs are single-use plastic, and single-use plastic has been banned in our province for bags and so on. And the provincial government has taken a stand on single-use plastics. Then it comes to us at the municipal level, and people are looking at us saying, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to pay just lip service to the environment, or are you actually going to take action? Because here is an actionable thing that you can do. Now, I was walking down by Shanx going west, and in the bushes there, and I think I told Councillor Boland this, it was at least a year after the election, there in the bushes was one of his election signs lying there in the bushes. And, these signs can get blown away, they get blown everywhere. The other day I was walking up in Oakdean Park, and in the trench going up to Oakdean Park was a Martha McQuarrie sign laying there in the water in a trench at Oakdean Park. So, this is definitely something that we can take a stand on and say, no, we're going to not, put these single-use plastic signs out this year. There are so many ways that candidates can make themselves known in today's society. Just one way is through the internet, but you can run, a flyer distribution. You can go walk the town and actually put material in people's houses. If you can't walk the town and you're not willing to talk to people face to face or, at 6 foot distance, if you're not willing to do that, should you be running for council? That would be my question. We're here for the people. We're here to serve the people. We're not just a pretty face stuck up on a sign and say, oh, that looks like a nice guy. Let's vote for him. Or she looks kind of cute, so we'll vote for her. There should be some substance. And I think this single-use plastic thing is a big enough issue that, we should take a hard look at it. Are we environmentally conscious, or are we just paying lip service? I can go and screw a light bulb in and say, yeah, I'm environmentally conscious. I got the LED bulbs. Or am I actually going to take a stand on something and lead the way on it? And so, I'm for doing this. I'm for leading the way on it. And I think candidates can be creative. Heck, I could put on a sandwich board and walk my dog and say, re-elect Kathy Maxwell. There's so many different ways that you can communicate with the public. It doesn't have to be a face on a sign. And That's my feeling.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Solicitor, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that. And sorry, when I hover over my hand now,
Well, your hand is up, so
my
that's
mute's
that's
covering
fine.
it. So I just wanted to be clear. I hear Councillor Maxwell speaking about what the signs are made of, and that is different than an outright ban on all election signs, because election signs are about the content. So wearing that board down the street, that board's an election sign.
Yeah.
Having your message up in lights on a lit up board, that's an election sign. So I hear what Councillor Maxwell's saying, and that's about what the sign is made from, as opposed to the content and what's on the sign.
Thank you, Solicitor. Councillor Pulsifer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a few comments to make. Although I, support Eric's motion in principle for environmental reasons, I've been looking at this issue of banning signs through COVID-19 eyes. With the October election being held, and the campaign involves, or has involved, as far as I was concerned, going door to door, face to face, that exposure, is important. With social distancing probably happening still in October, I hesitate to say that there will be a lot of candidates going door to door. I don't know how many people want to be face to face with different people coming, in this age of COVID, unless you have your masks on, I guess. But so without the exposure of the signs, any new candidate really is at a disadvantage to promote themselves. I think without some signs downtown, around the area. I just feel it presents a bit of an uneven field as far as comparison with those of us, the more well-known councillors who may be running again. And I think by banning this method of promoting the new people coming forward for municipal office, it just is a bit undemocratic. So that's my opinion. The environment is always, very important to me, but in this unusual time of COVID, I just feel that it puts any new faces and new candidates at a bit of a disadvantage. My thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Pulsifer. So I do have a few
My
words.
hand is up.
You've already spoken.
Oh, I'm
So
not allowed to
until
speak
everyone
again?
else, or until everyone else around the board has spoken, you do not speak again. Councillor Bolland, you should know this with all of your time on council.
Point of order there. I don't think that comment is necessary at all.
Councillor Maxwell, I spend a lot of time putting up with crap on process.
Point of order. I don't think those comments are necessary at all.
Thank you. Our LUB talks about signs only in paragraph 4.33, and it talks about signs which do not require a development permit. Signs associated with federal, provincial, or municipal elections, such signs shall not remain in place for more than 14 days following the election for which the sign was erected. So that's the only statement in any of our documentation that we have on election signs. Further to that, I did some study today and pulled up the material safety data sheet, so the MSDS sheet on Coroplast, which is the plastic product that is used to make signs. And chapter or paragraph 13 of that talks about disposal considerations. Disposal methods, its first one is to recycle it or to reprocess it. You can actually buy Coroplast at Home Depot to be used to put on walls and sheds and that sort of stuff. So signage could easily be used to put on, to be reused. Incineration, including energy recovery of waste material in a permitted facility in accordance with local, state, and provincial and federal regulations. So you'll all recall that down in Chester, that we have sustain, and so therefore this is something that could be used to create energy. The other thing, it talks about landfilling, although that's not something that we want to do. The other thing is from a hazard class, this is not a hazardous waste material. I think that it would be best if council considered limiting the number of signs that are put out, say to 5 signs, 10 signs, and that we also limit where signs could be, so that there would be just a few areas in town, either in the commercial zone, where signs could be put, and that gives everyone equal footing, and everybody's sign is in the same place. And we would eliminate signs in our residential areas, and on particularly vacant homes that are for sale by real estate companies that tend to end up with signage on them for no apparent reason. So I would like to propose that we consider, if we do want to stick with signs, is that we put them in certain locations. For example, as we come around the corner here from Main Street onto Cornwallis as one spot, perhaps over near the bridge, and perhaps on the way into town at the western end of town. So that would be my recommendation. Councillor Bolland.
Yeah, thank you. Just through to the solicitor, a few comments. Yarmouth has passed this. Their public meeting is next week, and the CEO is aware of this. Everybody saw the clipping. It's been in the Herald. They have passed it. Their policy in Yarmouth was created by their solicitor. I won't mention his name, but last name begins with a B. So it's been approved in Yarmouth. Okay. This is not about all election signs. It's just about municipal election signs. Everybody in the town of Kentfield has the internet, so that's not an issue. So again, it's an environmental issue, it's a financial issue, trying to level the playing ground for everybody. It's about leadership. So again, Yarmouth has approved it, the CEO is aware of that. Is that correct, CEO Rice?
I think I should jump in here, Your Worship.
Certainly.
I'm not prepared to speak about it in open session, but I will speak about it in camera. But Councillor Bolland's comments are what he would know from the public communications from the town of Yarmouth. I made a comment earlier, and like I say, I'm prepared to expand on that in camera. But my understanding is it's unlikely that things are going to proceed in Yarmouth.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
All right. Thank you, Worship. I have some thoughts on this, but I would rather probably keep it for the closed session, the in-camera session. I will echo what Councillor Pulsiver said in terms of some folks that are not so well known having the opportunity to get their names out there, in the upcoming election. I think that's really important. I like the idea of limiting the amount of signs. It's a complicated issue for sure. I'm all for saving the environment and being environmentally conscious. I think that's important. So I think we can strike a balance here. Not exactly sure what it's going to look like, and certainly we need to have some more dialogue around it, perhaps for the in-camera session. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, I appreciate your worship's research that you've done. I'm wondering, is Valley Waste sending materials such as that to Chester? That's one question. If they're not sending it to Chester, where does Valley Waste send that type of waste? Where does it go? Can somebody answer that question?
Solicitor?
Part of our research, we contacted Valley Waste. Some of these signs bear the recycling symbol. They are not recyclable in this jurisdiction. Some are truly single-use plastics, like plastic bags. And although technically recyclable, there really isn't a market for those types of plastics. The what you would call chloroplast, which is actually a brand name, that polyethylene plastic. Some of those bear the recycling symbol, but in this jurisdiction, according to Valley Waste, they are not recyclable, and Valley Waste is not aware of any what we typically call election signs, any recyclable election signs here. Some of the plastics are alleged to be compostable, similar to the liners that you can buy for green bins. They are not compostable in this jurisdiction because they don't break down quickly enough in the stream that the Valley Waste has.
Thank you. I believe then that our election signs from that will be going to the landfill. And that's just what we're trying to avoid. Or they're flying away into culverts and things like that that I've seen. So, you know, I still feel very strongly that we have an opportunity here to do more than just say that we believe in being environmentally conscious. That to me, that's just lip service. I think our decision would show action. Actions speak louder than words. And, you know, we're either going to live up to being environmentally conscious, actually doing it, or we're just going to pay lip service to it. And as far as arguments go that people can't get their name out there, I'm sorry. But I mean, if we can't go around and we can't talk to people in our community, then we shouldn't be running an election in this time of COVID. And I'm hoping that everybody sent that message through NSFM. If you're not going to go out and talk to people, you know, my stand is you shouldn't be coming for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. What I love about council and what I love about the democratic process is that everybody has the opportunity to speak. Everybody has an opinion, and I think everybody's opinion is important. I think this is a subject that we just need to have more dialogue on. I think some of us, probably most of us around the table, feel that we're environmentally conscious and that we care about the environment, and making decisions around signage, whether we agree or we don't agree, doesn't necessarily mean that we're just giving lip service to it. So I think it's important that I say that, and I think it's important to be respectful. Thank you.
Are there any further comments on this matter? Are you, Councillor Maxwell, is your hand up?
Oh, no.
Okay. Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the banning of municipal election signs in the town of Kentville and direct staff to move forward with the required amendments to the land use bylaw. Councillor Bolland, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Pulsfer, how say you?
No.
Councillor Andrew, how say you? You're still on mute.
Yes.
Councillor Savage, how say you?
No.
Councillor Maxwell, how say you?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, how say you?
Yes.
I say no. The motion is carried. All right, moving on to the next piece of business. We had a request after we completed our grants to organization to receive some more budget information from the Kentville Historical Society, and they have provided that information to us. So if there are no questions on the information, we will proceed with releasing the money as we voted during the capital budget process. Is there any discussion? There being none, CAO, you can process that through staffing, please. All right, moving on to our next, we have a piece of correspondence, an email from the Extinction Rebellion, King's Hants, David Mangle. And it is to Dear Mayor and Council, as the Extinction Rebellion King's Hants representative, I am writing to support the proposed ban on plastic campaign signs for municipal elections in Kentville. Extinction Rebellion believes we must all take action to effect positive change during our current climate crisis. It has been clearly shown that single-use plastics have negatively impacted our environment. Plastic campaign signs that end up in our landfill contribute to the problem. We are aware of many municipalities in Nova Scotia are taking positive climate crisis action steps now. We encourage Kentville to do the same. Thank you, David Mangle. All right, moving on to our new business. We have a request from the Kentville Historical Society. CAO, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, Your Worship, I certainly can. You will see that you do have the letter request in your council packages. I did meet with 2 members of the Historical Society and went through their plans. This is something that they are going to be partnering with the First Masonic Lodge in Kentville. This is their 150th anniversary, and so they would like to sort of leave a bit of a legacy in a legacy green space. As you can see, the budget is there for the proposed project, and there is also somewhat of a conceptual drawing that was able to be put together to give council an idea of just what it potentially will look like. Staff did look at it. We don't really see there any negative impacts to the parking by eliminating those 3 parking spaces right there adjacent to the Historical Society's building. And I'm open to any questions that I can answer as best I can.
All right, thank you then. If we could have a motion that council approve the creation of a legacy green space celebrating the 150th anniversary of the First Masonic Lodge number 58 adjacent to the VIA station on Town of Kentville owned land in partnership with the Kentville Historical Society at no cost to the Town of Kentville.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you, Councillor Savage. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the creation of a legacy green space celebrating the 150th anniversary of the First Masonic Lodge number 58 adjacent to the VIA station on Town of Kentville owned land in partnership with the Kentville Historical Society at no cost to the Town of Kentville. Discussion, Councillor Bolland.
Thank you, Worship. No, I think it's certainly important to continue to celebrate our legacy in the Masonic Lodge, and it's great to see that partnership come together, which helps everybody involved on costs and labor costs. So I think it's a great initiative. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Nothing further. Are you ready for the question? The question is to approve the creation of the legacy green space celebrating the 150th anniversary of the First Masonic Lodge number 58 adjacent to the VIA station on Town of Kentville owned land in partnership with the Kentville Historical Society at no cost to the Town of Kentville. Deputy Mayor, how say you?
I sorry to interrupt you, Your Worship, but I think the solicitor wanted a word before we vote.
I can say it now or at the end. I just thought that for the minutes, you should be clear that Councillor Pulsifer has declared a conflict, and if we were in a real horseshoe situation, she would have
She would be
stepped
sitting
down.
in the audience, yes, yes. But she won't, she doesn't get to speak in this.
I say yes, sorry.
Councillor Bolland,
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell,
Yes.
Councillor Andrew,
Yes.
Councillor Savage.
Yes.
I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, we have confidential legal business which must be conducted in a closed session. We require a motion to go into the closed session to discuss the agenda item. We will not be returning to Facebook Live for adjournment. So if I could have that motion, please.
So moved.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. And I'll take
Second.
your second, Councillor Andrew. It has been moved and seconded that council move into a closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into a closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried and the time is 5:19. All right, we are still recording, but we are